We have a presentation item. Ms. Khan, this is the financial results through March and April of 2018, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would you proceed? Go ahead.
All right, and that's tab 3 of your book. We actually have a report on April and also March revenues and expenditures, operating revenues and expenditures for March. And I'm going to go through, first of all systems funds, because really that's what you need to see, is where we are on all systems funds. The operating revenues for all systems in March compared to 2017, increased only by 4%, 4.9% exactly. But what I need to point out is that in our revenue projections last year, we had actually projected a 10% increase. So what this tells us is that our collections are down. The projection was that because we did the rate increase, that we would actually receive anywhere between 10 and 11% increase in 2018 for our revenues. On the other hand, our expenditures in March compared to 2017 increased by 18.4%. So that what that means is our expenditures to date are increasing even though our revenues are reducing. And so it's something that we need to be aware of, and it is a problem that we're having, and we need to take steps to make sure, and we are taking steps to reduce our expenditures and also increase our revenues. When you look at total systems days of cash, this report.
Pages answer.
It's immediate. It follows the statement of revenues.
But before you go to that, I just wanted to ask a question of Jade. She mentioned steps are being taken. Are you able to just briefly summarize what those might be at this time for the committee? Just so there is some semblance of where we are going and what direction we're heading in.
Sure.
With regard to that.
A couple things worth noting. One, we've had conversations with our leadership team here on reducing our expenses and what those strategies look like. So, for example, we had conversations with our operations team, to discuss what we move forward with, what are priorities, what are necessities at this point. Those things that are not absolute priorities to move forward with, those projects that are not absolute priorities, we are going to hold back on those at this time in order to right size our revenues. So on the expenses side, we're making some pretty aggressive actions on reduction of expenses across the system. On the revenue side, as you know, we have had a moratorium on shutoffs, whether it's actual or perceived. That is what we've been experiencing. So that is why you see a drastic decline in the revenues of the board, which have a direct effect on the numbers that you see. We are working right now. It's really a very careful balance that we have to strike. We have to restore public morale and confidence in our ability to deliver accurate bills to customers, number one. But number two, we're right now working very collaboratively with the city on ensuring that we can do two things: decrease the backlog of overbill disputes that we have in a way that really sets folks up to, number one, pay their past due bills, but also have confidence again that they'll have accurate bills going forward. And so we're working on a strategy that hopefully we'll be able to reveal to not only the board, but the general public very soon. That will lead to us being in a better position to reinstitute shutoffs, which is an absolute priority at this point, but again, a very careful balance. And so that is our strategy at this point.
Okay, and I asked that because I think, just wanted it to be known to committee members, to the public in general.
Sure.
Because it shows a real proactive posture in moving forward, and also elements of communication that I think are going to be critical in understanding, and that trust factor you talked about being recaptured.
Yeah, and I think you all, you know, when we are in a position where we're dotting all our I's and crossing T's, we met with our billing and customer service team, who honestly have been phenomenal in this process, to work on our strategy, rolling out how this backlog can get cut down. One thing that I failed to mention that is critical, because it speaks to our ability to sustain the decrease of the backlog, right? And that is to train our people. Our folks have been just desperate and begging for our billing department folks to get additional training on the Cogsdale system. And so the solution that we hope to be able to present to the board and to the public will also give our employees enough time, to our supervisors, our leaders in billing, enough time to train their staff and retrain their staff in certain instances, so that we can ensure that whatever we do going forward is sustainable.
Okay, thank you. Maureen?
Yes,
So,
sir.
one more question too. I want to make sure I heard you right. You said expenses are increasing.
Yes, sir.
I'm looking at your narrative on operating expenses.
Yes.
But you said total system funds are year to date are 22% less than budgeted, and 12% less than March 2017.
Well, is that by a specific fund?
No, I'm looking at total system funds.
Okay.
Total system funds, which is what I thought you addressed earlier.
Right. You're saying that-
Because I saw you said, well, the revenues are down, but I thought I heard you say also that expenses are going up.
Oh, yes.
But this says your expenses are less year to date than
Yeah, but
budgeted and,
Oh, but that's compared to budget.
Budget.
That's
well,
the
but
other-
also, but also less than last year.
Oh, no, that's not.
Just
possible.
water, right?
Ralph, perhaps we might want to look at the net non-operating revenues.
That's different though.
Yeah,
That's a
but-
different section.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
No,
that's-
I'm just trying to make sure I understood where she's showing the increase in expenses. I see it by fund. I see it
Right.
in water and then also by sewer. I'm sorry, no, by sewer and drainage, right?
Right.
But then total system funds are less than budgeted.
Right.
But you're saying they're less than budgeted.
Are you looking at the 12.1 less than March 27 in comparison year over year?
Yeah, that and also compared to budget, right?
Right.
Current budget.
Right, but I think what they're doing in here is, they're not comparing it to actuals. They're saying compare it to budgeted.
Right.
Okay, and as you know, the budget was overstated anyway, so
We
you
adjusted that
really
last
can't.
meeting,
You have
right.
to look at your actual revenues, and that's what this spreadsheet does. It actually
Okay.
goes by what it was last year at this point in time.
Okay.
And when you look at that snapshot, our revenues, what we projected was like
We're down.
11%.
Right.
Right.
Okay.
We're down. And the other thing that is important is to look at the trend, and that's when I was talking about total system, days of operating expenses, cash, and and of course, we had a lot of emergency expenses. But when you look at January, February, and March 2018, we had 139 days of cash. you look at March 2016, we had 309 days of cash. So that reserve that we were having in 16, and when you compare that to what we are now in 2018, we have used that reserve.
Being depleted, yeah.
Right? And so we actually wanted to do at least 180 days of cash every month, and we're not able to meet that goal. It was just a goal set by the board. It wasn't in the covenant. But I think the thing that we need to be aware of and be careful of is that as we proceed, because, you know, June and we have hurricane season, and you probably are going to have some emergencies, that could be a problem as far as your cash status.
And I think one thing to emphasize here, again, if you look at the days of cash, November was when the shut off moratorium, if you will, I use that term loosely, was put into play. It was in November of 2017, and you can immediately see the drop of cash on hand, or days of cash that we have, you know, December through current. You can also see that number trending down on a monthly basis.
Right.
So
my point, that's just a typo in the narrative.
Yes.
It says 12% less. It should say 12% more than March
Yes,
2017. Right. Okay.
So again, this is just a snapshot of where we are in the trend, if you will, that needs to certainly be stopped.
And then the other page that's very important for us to follow is the narrative. These don't have a page number. It's called the balances of funds from bonds, and these are the capital funds that are available for sewer, and
that actually follows the narrative that Mr. Johnson was discussing.
sewer. And the very important thing with this is, and we are going to have there are two consultants that are coming back in July to give a report to the board, because they've really gone deep into analyzing our expenses and analyzing our revenues, just to see the capability for us to issue bonds, you know, and they really are going to come back to you to provide a report of, you know, is it going to be possible for us to issue bonds next year, and really kind of also review the status of our expenditures and our revenues. Because the key problem is that if you look, we have 31.3 million left for capital improvements in water. However, with sewer, we only have 1.3 available to use for sewer, and as we know, we do have tremendous needs for the sewer portion, and that's what we wanted to issue bonds for. And at this point, this is all that's left for the remainder of the year for sewer capital improvement funds.
And Jay, that could be a critical piece, ability or inability to issue bonds, correct?
Absolutely. And our ability to issue bonds is largely contingent on our ability to demonstrate that we have the ability to meet debt service.
You have to meet the covenants.
Yeah, we've got to be able to meet the
quarter.
covenants.
Right.
And at this point, honestly, I'm not, you know, I don't think any of us are confident that we're in a position to do that.
That's another stupid question. This will not be a long answer, I'm sure. We recognize revenue how? When it's paid to us? Do we accrue anything if we know that people aren't paying their bill, or is it just strictly cash basis?
This is strictly cash. Okay.
So our revenues should be substantially different, because if people.
They should.
Which will paint a different picture on everything. I mean,
Absolutely.
we couldn't have gotten a 10% bump in rates and be down year over year.
Absolutely.
Unless there's
Yeah.
and that's a positive thing, I think.
Yeah, and it is. It's positive, and I think once we are in a position again to confidently reinstitute shutoffs, you'll see an uptick in revenues because you'll have individuals who just haven't been paying, not because they have a dispute, but because they know they're confident that there won't be any shutoffs. To give you some color to that, we have this was received from our billing department. We have 136,000 accounts, and we only have 86,000 accounts that are being paid. So that gives you, that demonstrates to you how many people are not paying at this point. I'm asking them to give me a little bit more color on that in terms of the breakdown. But we're rolling up our sleeves. We're digging deep on our top, 25 customers, whether they're current, whether they're not, just really, really looking at on a deep dive basis.
And some of those are corporate, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Most of them are, yes.
I just want to make sure I'm understanding what you're telling me.
Yeah.
The moratorium on shutoffs is not tied to a person having a billing complaint, working through the system. You can just not pay your bill.
So let me say this. I think
Continue to receive services?
There was intent, and then there was what was actually the perceived message. And I think the intent was to, one, push people to dispute their bills. But I think in many ways that was received as we're not shutting off any water because of the billing issues that we're having, and we haven't. And so we have to reinstitute that process. But again, we have to restore public confidence while we do so.
I hope that there is a way for us to determine what accounts are legitimately in dispute, because, obviously we don't want to shut people's water off if they have a legitimate claim.
Sure.
But just to simply say, I'm not going to pay, and particularly corporate accounts, that is, I think, irresponsible of us to not require those folks to pay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mrs.
We have to take a look at what the city did about that, I think.
Yeah.
But
We have, to answer your question, we have looked at it. I think it was reported in the May board meeting that we have approximately 10,000 disputed claims, disputed accounts, I stand corrected. Approximately 1,500 of those are being eliminated on a weekly basis, but again, we have to fix the cause, not just the symptom, right? So we are eliminating disputes, but we're also still getting them, and so we've got to get to the root cause.
But if we had 26,000 originally, I don't know if that's correct, but I think that's the number, and we have almost 60,000. If we have 80 out of 140,000 who are not paying, we have 60,000. I mean, that's
right. But all of
that's
those are not disputed. So right now,
right, no,
as of right now, we have about 10,000 of those 60 that are disputed. Yeah.
Then we're going to wind up in a situation where people say, "Well, I haven't paid since last October. It's now July. I can't pay it." But we're going to have to get a plan. I mean, I do think it's a really exigent circumstance.
Yeah. So our billing department resolved approximately 2,300 disputes. It could be, I think it's a little bit more than that. But they also received an additional 1,100, right? And so those, again, we're taking them away, but we're also adding back to the pile. And so we've got to get that backlog down, in a significant way.
Okay. Any additional reporting, Marina? Or is that?
The April sort of is a continuation of the same trend. The revenues, when you compare April, it's actually only up 3.1%, so it's actually the collections are further reduced, and the expenditures were not as high. They went up by 7.7%. So at least we kind of offset it by, obviously, because we came back and we said we were going to reduce, I think it was $8 million in personnel, and then you had all the contractual services that we reduced. The cash is, we're still at 126 days of cash, which is still much lower than where we were in April of 2016. We were at 302 days, and in 2017, we were at 275 days of cash. And as far as the capital projects, the bonds for water, we obviously expended, so we're down to 21 million and 1.2 for sewer. And that ends my presentation.
Chair. Ms. Gleason. Ms. Gleason.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Ms. Khan,
Yes, ma'am.
how long are you with us?
I am with you till June 30th. And I do have a replacement, right?
Yeah, so prior to Marcy departing, that was one of her priorities, was to hire a CFO. There is a candidate that has, an offer has been extended and accepted. And so her first day is June 25th. And so they'll have some transition time between the two of them. And we also know how to find Marina. So if to the extent that it carries over into
And I
won't
have
be full.
offered to.
she has graciously.
In
yeah.
July, if you need me for certain things, I have, offered to be here and help in any way that I can.
Well, thank you, and I want to thank you for your service, for
Thank you very much.
stepping in.
And unlike some other situations, there really is a transition time here, which is quite different from what happened in other situations, in other positions. Okay. Any other questions from thank you, Marina. Any other questions from committee members regarding any other issues?
I don't know whether this is the right time to be opening this, but I wanted to request that at our next committee meeting that we place on the agenda the document that we received concerning change orders, the subcommittee proposal.
Mm-hmm.
So that we can have a discussion, we can get some background and maybe make a decision on
Right,
that.
because we'll probably have another subcommittee meeting too with regard to this, which will help us in terms of updating and revising this. Okay.
The subcommittee
Hey,
meeting,
we'll make that happen.
Yes, sir.
the subcommittee meeting's open to anybody wants to come, board members?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely.
So
Only two
let us
board
know when they're
members,
gonna be,
correct.
Yeah, well, and we can have additional
sep-
board members. However, the quorum, will not allow for non-committee members
Right.
to
Vote.
vote, but can absolutely
Yeah,
participate
yeah,
in any
okay.
meeting.
And if we have more than two, we will have to notice the meeting.
That's right.
Right.
We'll just simply have to
Okay.
notice the meeting.
Okay,
And we're fine. We're absolutely
so
fine.
we could as long as
Can
we
I
notice the
note,
meeting.
will you
It has to be a
notify
public
all
meeting.
directors of
Absolutely.
the subcommittee meeting?
Absolutely.
I'm interested in it.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have one more thing, I'm sorry. If we have somebody who disputes their bill, and just suppose their bill's been $100 a month, they get a bill for $2,000. Do we, I believe we do have now, we have a default position where we can bill them what their bill has been?
So
So
what,
we don't just say-
I think the general, modus of operandi has been the request for folks to pay what they have been paying, but that has not been a mandate. And so we have folks who have disputed the bill, and just not paid. Could folks do that? Yes. Do we encourage them to do that? Yes. Just to give you a little bit of color on where we're trying to get to in order to reduce the backlog. We're trying to shorten the dispute process, even if it's for a temporary period, to get the backlog down. So right now, the typical process is you dispute, you go to review, you go to inspection, you go back to review, and then if necessary, you would go to an administrative hearing officer. And what we're trying to do is condense that process to quickly decrease the backlog.
Will our software, I swear this is the last question, Could our billing software take a look and say, this is what you paid over the last 12 months, so we're gonna bill you for your average for the last 12 months, and you would be obligated to pay that until we resolve the difference?
Yeah, and we've tried that, and unfortunately, it does not accommodate us that, yeah, at this point. And so we're working to get
But
there.
it's something that would be very useful.
But you do have some accounts where people are paying, those accounts, our customers are paying something toward that account, or is it
Absolutely.
more not paying?
Absolutely.
Okay.
You do.